it's going to be on the topic Introduction to Crash Analysis. Okay, so first, this webinar will include all these topics. First, to understand the key performances of an automobile, followed by the facts on accidents, because you need to understand why you need to study and investigate on an area. So you need to understand the background. So you will deal on facts of the accidents, and what are the governing agencies that deal with these accidents, and what is CAE, what is the role of CAE in vehicle crash analysis, followed by the current trends which are happening in the industry, and the last three will be why you want to aspire a career as a crash engineer. Why not other things? Why this? And typical job roles you will do when you get into this field, and how to get into this domain. So these are the webinar including items. So let me first move on to the first topic, which is the key performances of an automobile. So for an automobile, there are various performances that are key, and we'll be talking about a list of main key items. So the first one is the strength and the durability of a car. Once you have a car, you are a vehicle, you will have to go through lots of potholes, lots of bumps, ups and downs, and still your car has to be durable. It has to withstand all the loads. It has to have a certain strength. So the strength and the durability of the car has to be to a particular performance level. So that is one of the main performances regarding the structure. And then followed by noise and vibrations. So this is one important area where you will directly be into that situation and experience that. All the other performances, you will not be directly experiencing it, because this is where you actually experience, because you sit inside the car and you feel the noise of an engine entering into your area where you sit. It's not good. So noise is going to be one of the bigger areas where the performance of an automobile has to be higher. Vibration, you sit on the steering wheel and hold the steering wheel. Vibration of, if you still feel the vibration of the engine, then it's not good. So this is where you persevere the quality. So this is one of the other main fields. And then coming on to that, this is crash worthiness, which I will talk about in detail in this session, because all the other performances do not have a target criteria, because there are no laws which govern whether your car has to be durable up to 1 lakh kilometer, 2 lakh kilometer, or whether your noise levels have to be this much. All those are persevered, so that they are not being regularized by any agencies. But crash, there are certain laws in each and every country, each and every continent, and which you will have to pass. Only then you are allowed to launch a car. So that's another important field. And then thermal and cooling, yeah, you have to have certain levels of thermal cooling. Your air conditioner has to work properly. So all those things come into play. Ride and handling, you move into a cornering, you turn the car, you should feel better. So that is another field. And flooding and snowing, yeah, you go into rains, your water should not enter your car, and you ride your car in snowy areas, your car should not stop or something. And then finally, engine performance. This is the heart of the engine, or heart of the vehicle. So this also is one of the key performances. So out of all these key performances, today we'll talk about crash worthiness. So first, let's start with crash worthiness. Before we get into it, let's see some facts on accidents. So this is a data from the World Health Organization report on 2018. So it says 1.35 million people die on traffic road accidents every year globally, which is 13 lakh people. And this traffic accidents is the 8th leading cause of death, and it is expected to be the 5th leading cause of death by 2030 if there are no further improvements in safety standards. If the safety standards are going to be the same way, it will change to 5th lead, so which means the rate is alarmingly increasing. And this is the first cause of death among the children aging from 5 to 14, and also in the young adults aging from 15 to 29. So till the age of 29, this is the first leading cause of death, not anything else. So this is the most alarming thing which we have to understand. And the percentage of ways, it says 3% of cyclists, 28 motorists, and 23 pedestrians, which are mostly done by some cars hitting the pedestrians. And out of these remaining things, everything comes under the car accidents mostly, because the accidents by trucks and buses are lesser percentage. So the alarming death rates and serious injuries. What you see here is only the death rates, and there are serious injuries also which happen, which are not actually shown in this picture, but they also have to be taken care. And there's one statistics on the left corner which says low income countries. Of all the vehicles that is available, low income countries have only 1% of the vehicles, world's vehicles. So which means only 1% of vehicles are there, but still the accident death rate is 13% of all the deaths. Whereas in high income countries, where 40% of the world's vehicles fly, but the percentage of death is only 7%. So which means countries like Europe, USA, Japan are all doing good because their death rates are lesser, even though the vehicles are more in number there. But in India and Africa, it's quite opposite. So even though the vehicles are lesser, the death rate is alarming. And one more to add on, every 24 seconds, someone dies on this road. So this is why you will have to study this area, why you need to investigate on an area. So let me tell you about the type of accidents for a car. So which is, one is frontal crash, as you see the top picture, where the vehicle of front end of the vehicle collides. Of all the accidents that happen for the car, 57% of them are frontal crash. And side collision, which is one car hitting on the lateral direction, hitting your doors, so that is 25%. And rear, so someone coming and hitting you at the rear, it's 8%. And some rollovers, because of high speed cornering and all, you end up in a rollover, that's another 8%. And there are other two, which is other areas. So these are the accident types that could happen, and the percentage of them for you to understand which is more severe, which is less severe, which does not happen. And other than these type of accidents that happen for a car, you will also have accidents which you happen to have it with an external part, which is you hitting a cyclist, hitting a pedestrian, and hitting a motorist. These are all the upcoming areas which are now having more importance globally, especially in Europe and all, where the people using the pedestrians and cyclists have increased a lot. And nowadays, these accidents are also undertaken by the governing agencies. And other than the fields that you see here, there are also additional fields which are studied, which is accidents on cyclists and pedestrians and motorcycles. So I've been telling you governing agencies. So what are governing agencies? What are the types of governing agencies? Actually, there are three types of agencies which finally govern the vehicle safety. How safe your vehicle is governed by three agencies. One is the government agencies, which is the two, I have listed two. Globally, there are too many, but I have important ones I'm showing you right now. One is the NHTSA, which is for the USA. USA government takes care of this. So whatever vehicles are launched in USA, they have to pass through the governing laws by this agency. And then UNECE, which is globally used for all other countries. So they follow a special standard for Europe, which is globally accepted. So in India also, it was being accepted. So this is one type of agency which governs. Second one is the insurance agencies. So once you launch a car, people will do some minor accidents and also will end up in major accidents, even till death. On all those things come under the insurance, because the insurance agency will have to cover. So the insurance agencies in the globe, mainly in USA and China and in Europe, have three agencies which govern the vehicle safety. So they impose some strict laws on the vehicles and tell that you have to make this vehicle more better. So they will advertise the vehicle in a more better way. So once your vehicle is having good vehicle standards of safety, they tell you, oh, rate this car, okay, this car is very good, you buy this car. That kind of marketing comes from insurance agencies. So one is IHS in USA, CIASI in China, and RCAR in Europe. And the final one is the NCAP, which is the External Safety Agency. Maybe you guys have been hearing about GNCAP testing or Indian vehicles, telling them blah blah blah, it's not good, not that bad. So all those comes under the external safety agencies. So every country has their own NCAPs: US NCAP, Latin NCAP, Euro, C NCAP, Japan, Korea, Australia, Asian NCAP. And India is now introducing an NCAP called as BNB SAP. So India is also working on a special NCAP, which is BNB SAP. And then finally, the global NCAP, which covers most of the areas where the safety NCAPs are not specifically there. So they test only mostly African countries, and then they were also doing for India. Maybe it is mostly now covered in the BNB SAP. They might have think about removing this and concentrate morely on Africa in the later stage. So all these are the agencies which govern the safety standards and tell the manufacturer you have to make this vehicle for such a safety. In addition to this, the manufacturer also has some norms. So they also have some safety policies which might be stricter than them. So they will also impose some additional safety other than the ones posed by these governing agencies. So these are the governing agencies. So first let us move into safety systems before we enter into the safety area of crash where we build and all. Let's first understand what is a safety system and what are the types. There are two types. One is the active safety system. Active safety system is the one which helps in preventing an accident. Okay, so before any accident happens, they will help you in preventing an accident, and they control the vehicle dynamics. So once after some technology is used, it prevents the vehicle from getting into an accident state. So which means from the detection of accidents, where you detect, okay, there's going to be some vehicle there, you have to detect and understand there's going to be a risk of crash, active safety comes into play. So active safety is the one which starts from detection till the crash happens. So examples of active safety are anti-lock braking systems, which is ABS, and electronic stability control, ESC, and autonomous emergency braking, AEBs. All this comes under active safety. They prevent you from getting into an accident. So reduce the speed, apply some brakes, stabilize your vehicle, and then save you from getting into a state of crash. And the second part of the safety system is the passive safety system. So passive safety system, they help in mitigating the consequences of accidents. So once you lead into an accident, once an accident actually happens, how to save the occupant who sits inside, or how to save the one who had undergone an accident on the other side, maybe a pedestrian, a cyclist, a motorist, how to save all them, all these parameters comes under the passive safety system. So this passive safety system helps you in reducing the amount of injury, and also provides active safety, additional safety, that you don't get into a serious injury. So for example, the passive safety is the area where you start from the crash and until you end up with an injury. All this is covered by the passive safety system. And for examples, which is the seat belts in the cars, the airbags, and the crash worthiness body. Crash worthiness means the vehicle being good in crash, that it deforms properly and does not transfer that much of load to you. So that kind of body structure building, all those things comes under passive safety systems. So all the governing agencies that we saw in the previous slide have certain norms, certain regulations on active safety and also on passive safety. So whatever technologies that you input into the active safety and plus the passive safety, how it works, and based on these two functionings, they rate your car for star ratings. So whatever ratings that you saw in the GNCAP regarding the Indian vehicles, from 0 star to 5 star, all those are rated based on whether the active safety was good enough, whether the passive safety was good enough, whether how much the adult occupant in the car got injured, how much child occupant got injured. All those things, based on that, the safety systems are rated by the governing agencies. So this is about the safety systems. So let's move into what is crash. So crash, by the definition, it's a violent collision typically of one vehicle with another or with an object. So it's going to be a vehicle to vehicle colliding or something like this, how the thing happens as per it's shown in this image. So let me explain what will happen in a frontal crash, for example. So all the structural parts in front of the car, so this area, as you see in this picture, the front of the car, everything gets crushed if it's properly designed. If it's made too stiff, maybe it will not design, it will not rupture, or it will not crush. So all those things have to be designed or engineered to put it in the right way. All they are designed and engineered such that the structural parts are all crushed, ruptured, and the engine gets once after the crushing stops. I mean, you cannot crush entire thing of the engine or something in the front because the engine is a rigid block. So what happens? This engine hits the cabin area, this area of the area where your occupant sits. So this area you get into the engine gets into this area and hits the occupant compartment, which is called as the cabin. So after this engine hits, it's going to be a huge force hitting and the cabin collapses. So once after all the front end parts stops to collapse because there's nothing more to collapse, and the engine hits the cabin and the cabin starts to get deformed. And when the cabin starts to get deformed, a similar time when all these things were happening, what will happen is the driver sitting inside the car, he will be moving forward because of inertia, and the driver and the occupant obviously start to move forward rapidly due to inertia, because he's going to be riding at a very high speed. It's not going to be low speed crashes when we are talking about high speed crashes. And the seat belts will try to hold them like this, and the airbags at the same time will deploy from the steering wheel for a driver, and then from CPM, which is cockpit module, for the passenger, and they help in reducing the speed of occupant motion. They do not save the occupant, they help in reducing the occupant's deceleration. So that is why they are called as supplement restraint systems. They don't work individually, they supplement, and they are not the only ones which save you. So this is what will happen. All those things you see, all those rupturing of all the front end, all the things in front of the car ruptures, crushes, and the engine moves back, and then the occupants rapidly are thrown in front, and then the seat belt and airbags are deployed. How much time do you guys think this might have to take place? All this happens in a fraction of a second, which is, in a maximum case, whatever it is, it might be 100 milliseconds. It is the maximum. So which means 0.1 second. Before you start to think what is going to happen, everything is going to end. So this is why crash is an important field. So you have to being a crash engineer, you will be designing a vehicle, engineering a vehicle, such that all the things in front, whichever we discussed in case of a frontal crash, are rapidly working properly as you engineered it to work, so that the final injury that the occupant gets is minimum. So this is why it's a very important field which is governed, without which you cannot launch a vehicle, and makes your job also more interesting. So this is about crash. Okay, so let's next move on to crash loading conditions. So about the loading conditions, so what we saw in the previous slide was frontal crash. So currently in the global world, there are around 30 load cases which have been enforced by those governing agencies which we discussed, to represent the real world accidents. All the real world accidents, every agency is working on continuously. There's a separate field which is called as accident reconstruction and analysis. So once an accident happens, certain type of accidents happen a lot in a country. They do the accident reconstruction, understand from the skid marks and from the damage what kind of speed of accident happened, where it's the direction of force, and they design a new load case. So by this loading conditions, they have simulated and currently they have enforced around 30 load cases. I'm just putting you a list just for your representation. One, this is like a frontal crash, which is offset. Only the driver's side may be hitting some another vehicle, representing that. And this is a side collision, a vehicle hitting on the sides. And the injury of the side collision is being studied here. And then you going and hitting a tree or a pole on the sides. And then this is a rollover, and this is a rear crash, and this is a flat barrier full frontal. So you're going and hitting a flat rigid wall or something, and the injuries of frontal crash. So these are all some examples of all the 30 load cases, and this is keeping on increasing. So this is every manufacturer have to pass all these load cases to launch their cars. So every car, you have to think why a car development takes a long time, because usually the car development in a manufacturer, in an OEM, usually takes around 3 years roughly. I mean, if it's not a very small change or minor change, because they need to do a lot of engineering, because they have to pass all this. In addition to this performance, they have to also deal with all of the performances that we initially talked about. So, and as I said, these load cases are updated continuously every year, every quarter. Every governing agency talks about it, understands, and puts a new law. So, for example, in the Europe from 2020, there's going to be a new law, which 2022 to be exact, 2022, where it's going to govern all the cyclists, because cyclists are currently not covered globally, and Euro NCAP is one which is working on it. Maybe it will come to the entire global world also. And China is working on something more stringent and all, and also Euro NCAP is also working on something which is called as a 100 km speed impact. So right now, whatever speeds that you see here are 64, 65 kmph. Europe is also working towards 100 kmph. So all those are being investigated and being enforced. So first, let's talk about what is CAE and what are the roles that a CAE will do. So CAE is nothing but computer aided engineering, which is an engineering analysis performed in the computers using the CAD, which is the design, obviously. So once you have the design, once the designer makes a design, you have to validate the design. So that validation is nothing but the engineering analysis. This is performed by the CAE tool, which is the C computer aided engineering. And CAE finds applications in all the areas. Wherever a product is being developed, any product which is developed has to meet all the performance. So obviously it needs CAE, which needs to confirm whether the engineering is right or wrong. So it can be in various fields like fluid dynamics, where CFD comes into picture, kinematic stress analysis, dynamic static, and all those things find applications in the CAE. And CAE have transformed the engineering analysis from hands-on experience to virtual simulation. So whatever which was done hands-on earlier, now everything is going to be virtual. And this is why much of the design verification is now being done by the computer simulations, and rather than physical prototype testing. And even though nowadays, even though you do all this computer analysis, you will have to do a physical test to validate, because CAE is just a tool or a methodology which gives you an output just based on the inputs that you define. So if you're wrongly giving an input, the output might not be the right one as you intended to be. So you still have to do the physical prototype testing. But what has CAE done is it has reduced the physical prototype testing, which we'll be seeing in the next slide. So what is the necessity of CAE first? Because as I told you, there are 30 load cases now. In 1988, there was just one load case, and in 2016, that whatever data I told you of 30 is from 2016. So the number of load cases have been increasing drastically. So there are more and more stringent load cases. So you might not know whether your design is good enough for all the load cases. So and the crash conditions are becoming severe, because earlier accidents were happening at a lower speed, because your roads were not good enough, your vehicle conditions were not performing that much well. So the vehicles actually traveled at a lesser speed accidents happen. But nowadays your roads are good, your all those conditions are good. So you ride at a higher speed, accidents happen at a higher speed. So the crash conditions are also becoming much more severe. So advanced crash conditions, and for you need a robust solution, because once your crash happens, you mean like as when we see the side pole impact, the pole hitting position, even if the pole hitting position is 1 feet left, 1 feet right, your vehicle should perform either way. It should be robust. You cannot just keep your position in the same one and then say your vehicle is good. Your vehicle might not behave properly in another position. So you need to have a robust solution. So wherever something happens, your vehicle should be robust. And for all these things, you need to have an optimized solution. You cannot just be dumping some mass onto the vehicle and increasing the strength of the vehicle, because it needs to have an optimized solution. So this brings in the necessity of CAE, because you need some optimization tools, technologies to optimize the vehicle. And so you have the competition quicker to market. You launch a vehicle quicker to the market, you are better in sales, you get, so that's the competition in the world. So for being quicker in the market, you need some engineering tools which reduce the engineering time, so which is CAE. So the role of CAE has become very important nowadays. And what are the benefits of CAE? From CAE, what all can you benefit? So for example, the top process, which is there for a schematic representation, is the original process which was followed. One is the concept phase, followed by the detailed engineering and the engineering refinement. So once you develop a concept and you do the detailed engineering here and refine the engineering whichever you have done, I mean by testing, understanding whether the engineering detail was done right or wrong. So re-engineering, refinement is done here. So if you have a CAE, what would happen? You would develop the concept phase, and then you might also reduce the concept phase. This is just a schematic representation, right? Let us talk about only this area. So what you will do is your detailed engineering will reduce, because the initial design itself, you will have a improved initial design by kickoff. So during the kickoff itself, you will have an initial improved design. By the means of CAE, you can understand which is good, and you can have a faster optimization. So you will have a faster optimization here. So which means that the detailed engineering can stop over here, and then the engineering refinement time can be stopped earlier, which means the vehicle launch which was planned here might happen a little bit earlier. So the percentage of problems that you can solve can be solved quicker. So which means the SOP, start of production lead time reduction, can happen because of improved design and faster optimization. And the second thing, this is a chart which shows with respect to time, what is the cost of design and what is the opportunity of design, reducing the cost of the designs. Obviously, you go to a supplier, ask the supplier to make some design for a vehicle which is going to launch like 2 years later. Probably the cost that he quotes you would be lesser. And obviously, you go to him at the end of the vehicle launch, like vehicle is going to launch in the next month or few months. You ask him to change a design, put a new part, ask him to change everything. Obviously, he will throw a lot of cost at you, and you also will not have a time to see whether the solution is optimized, or you don't get the opportunity to optimize the solution. So the cost of design change keeps on increasing rapidly as the time goes on. And also the opportunity to reduce the cost. As I told you, maybe you can do the same design, whichever same performance, whichever was required, with a much cheaper design. So this cheaper design identification can be done when you have a better option, a lot of options to look at, Only then you will be able to understand whether it's there is a possibility, you have a chance to make it cheaper or not. You will know only in the initial phase. So all this opportunity to reduce cost all keeps decreasing when the time increases. So all this tells you that you need CAE because you need to do all these things quicker. So you can save a huge design cost savings. And once you do all this design and all this CAE is done properly, which means that the failure that happens in the vehicle testing, in the actual physical testing of vehicle, starts to reduce. So which means the prototype cost that happens on cost for testing a vehicle keeps reducing. So lesser prototype cost. So these are the benefits of CAE. So what is CAE doing in vehicle crash analysis, and what is being done as a process? So first you do all the concept planning, the design makes the concept planning, and then comes the digital development. So the designer makes a CAD, makes all the refined CAD, whatever is needed, thinks what is the design which he needs to meet the performance. So he does some engineering and stores a CAD. And what you do, so you convert this CAD to the FE format, which is pre-processing. So you convert the CAD into fine meshes, which is called the pre-processing. And then you simulate this pre-processed vehicle in a crash simulation. So run a crash simulation in a solver and understand what is happening. It gives you the result, tells you this is the crash, this is the result, and you analyze the result in the post-processing phase. So in post-processing, actually you will see where is the deformed area in the cabin, whether this deformation is okay, this deformation is not good, somewhere is the high strain, somewhere okay, there's a possibility of rupture there, you'll have to increase the strength. All those post-processing works, and based on this finally is the dummy injury. So whatever dummy which you have, either it's a female, male, based on the regulation, whatever it says, how much is the injury, what is the injury to head, chest, hands, legs, on all those are measured. So this is done in the post-processing phase. So this is the design development, digital development cycle. So you, based on this post-processing, you give feedback to the CAD design, which again refines the CAD, changes the CAD, you again pre-process it, do the crash simulations again, do the post-processing, and give it back to the design. So once this cycle goes on, and it's going to be okay design, and from there it goes to the physical testing. So this is the digital development cycle. So what are the softwares that are used in the crash? So regarding pre-processing, there are lots of other softwares also. I'm going to tell you about the major ones that are used in the leading automobile industries. So the pre-processing is done by Hypermesh and ANSA, and then crash simulation, which is nothing but running a calculation of the pre-processed vehicle in some setup conditions, and then getting out the solver results. So this is usually done in LS-DYNA, PAMCrash, which is a ESI tool, and then Abacus, Radios, ANSYS. These are the main predominantly used solvers. And then coming on to post-processing, which is where you see the results. You will use Hyperview, Animator, Visual Viewer, MetaPost. So these are all just tools. Everything, or either the solver, either the pre-processor or the post-processor, all those have different names because they are all from different parties. But the functioning of those are going to be similar. So you understand one thing, you might have a easier way to get into the other field. I mean, once you know Hypermesh, I think you can easily learn ANSA, because the options and the tools where those options are there are going to be different. That's it. So these are the softwares that I use. So for pre-processing, Hypermesh and ANSA. Solvers predominantly LS-DYNA, PAMCrash, and post-processing, Hyperview, Animator, Visual Viewer, and MetaPost. So these are the solvers that are softwares that I use. And let me tell you a history of crash simulation, just to understand, make you guys understand. So the y-axis here is about the mesh size. So from the coarser mesh, which is like a bigger mesh, from there to a finer mesh. So which means the element size keeps on decreasing from the coarser to the finer. So in 1988, whatever the mesh size that was used and number of elements based on that for a car was only 25,000 elements. Only 25,000 elements were used. So from there, only, like as you can see, only the impact side, which is this side, as you see in this picture, was done with a finer mesh on the major areas, not the tire, not the engine, and all those things, and the rear part of the car. This is in case of a frontal crash, was done finer. So this was the earlier methodology which was used in 1988. From there, people understood that it needs more refinement because other things also have to have a better capturing of the physical phenomena. So they kept increasing the element size, reducing the element size, increasing the element numbers. It kept on increasing. And in 2010, it was like 2.8 million elements, which is 28 lakh elements. When we started, it was like 25,000. So once you go from coarser to finer mesh, your crash simulations keeps on becomes more and more tougher because the solvers need to solve a lot of elements, lots of nodes have to be solved, and you have to get a lot of output back. So which means you are dependent on more robust solvers, quicker solutions giving. So all those FEM comes into picture in this. So this is the just to understand how this crash simulations have started and how it has transformed. And in right from 2000, we started predicting injuries, and this is where dummies came into picture. Okay, so before that, it was just structure. Only with structure, we used to predict, okay, if the intrusion is this much, okay, the occupant will have such an injury on the chest, such an injury on the head. All this were just engineered. It was not simulated. And from 2000, we started simulating the injuries. And what are the current trends in CAE crash? So as you know, we have been using a lot of composite materials. So all this composite material needs some special modeling and evaluations because those are all in the current trends. So this is one field which is being worked on. And one of the main things that we have to think about in a crash is the failure or the rupture prediction. So you have to have a very good, accurate rupture prediction methodology that the bolt or the spots which are connecting each panels, bolts which are connecting each panels, all these bolts, spots, metals, even the metal tearing, all those have to be predicted very accurately. And this is a very big challenge for any guy who does the simulation because the materials have a range of the yield point has a range, and it changes from each supplier to supplier or each destination to destination. The same material available in Europe will be having a different or mechanical properties, and the one available in USA might be different. So all those things have to be accurately predicted. So once you see some rupture prediction, then only you will have a accurate prediction of what happens in front in a frontal crash and what happens in a side crash, and all those things you can accurately predict. So this is one of the major issues that happens in a vehicle development. And direct injury evaluation of various injuries. So there are lots of dummies because you have a child occupant, you have a female, you have a male, and also this occupant size changes from each country. So whatever the male occupant in the USA size will be decided based on the average size of the people in the USA. And the same thing will be different by the people in Japan because they are smaller and USA people are bigger. So obviously all those injuries, all those dummies might have to be different. So there's one new dummy coming up called as Thor. So there are lots of other dummies that represent the average human beings. All those things are now directly being evaluated. So even though the injury started evaluations in 2000, it was just a rough idea, and now we accurately predict the entire injuries which happens in the physical test. And then the material modeling, as I talked about failure rupture predictions, the material modeling of all those advanced high strength steels have to be more accurate, because all this crash condition keeps evolving day by day, becomes tougher and tougher. All the manufacturers start to put a lot of effort on the major load carrying parts in a crash. So they put some strong members like this, as this is a pictorial representation, to show where the load path is and where you put a stronger member, weaker member. So all those things have to be modeled more accurately in a crash phenomenon. So this is a current trend which is used and followed in the current automobile industry. And once you take up this CAE engineer or whatever role, what are the roles and responsibilities that you might be performing? So you will have to perform a complex design analysis using the CAE, and develop alternative design solutions or quick engineering solutions. Because once the designer has already made a design and you've validated it, and you're going to tell him that this is not good, because you are the one who is analyzing it, so you will know which is the better alternative solution to make it okay. So that has to come from the CAE. And you will be participating in design review meetings to provide appropriate review. And so you will participate in design review meetings to provide appropriate recommendations. And there might be some field issues, where something might fail in the physical, you might not get through in the physical, but might fail in the actual conditions. So you will have to timely solve all those field issues. And since crash is the major thing which will govern the vehicle development process, you will have to assist the management in establishing a project plan and priorities. So this will be the roles and responsibilities of a CA engineer in general. And why you need to aspire a career as a crash engineer, why you need to stand different, because this is the most interesting engineering job, and it's a challenging one, because it's not easy. Just you don't work with Excel tools and these things. You will be working on complex things, complex engineering, and it will be challenging, obviously, and it will be a rewarding one. And you design the vehicle, as we talked earlier, for a very complex phenomena which happens within a fraction of time. And there are lots of opportunities globally, because you can work in a lot of fields, not just the OEMs. There are tier 1, tier 2, all those suppliers, all those things, and they're well paid. And obviously, you do something for the society. You save lives, because you work on a system that indirectly has a corporate social responsibility kind of thing. And then you have a job satisfaction. Being all those good, you will have a proper job satisfaction. So what are the typical job roles for you to understand when you take up this field? What you will be having in an entry level, then further middle, and then to the top management? First, on entry level, you will be working with an automobile OEM, tier 1, tier 2 supplier, or something, who validate all the designs through CA. So you can be one of the guy who does the pre-processing work, which is finite element modeling work, which we talked earlier, and then the finite element calculation, which is the crash simulation work. So you submit the calculations in the solver, debug all the errors, get the solver output. Or you can be a guy who does the crash analysis. You analyze the crash, understand the in-depth, and give proper design feedback solutions. And if you have all this knowledge, you will also have an opportunity to work with the crash testing team. So all these things can be a role when you come into a entry level position. And what happens in a senior level? So when you go to a senior level, so you have to have an expertise in every performance. All the key performances, whichever was there, needs to have an expertise in every field. So you can be a performance head, you can be a performance lead, and once you know all the key performances, you can further be a project head, a project lead, which is and then further you can also be a vehicle development head or a vehicle development lead. And you can be a expert or a crash expert or a consultant for all OEMs, because all OEMs since the governing agencies keep on changing, they need some experts to give them solutions for all the complex problems that occurs day by day. So you can be a consultant also. So that is how the typical job roles will be there for a senior level. Then coming on to the top management. So any engineering company or any OEM, whatever, needs a head with a much needed technical knowledge, because you cannot be a head of a company without knowing the technical background of it, because you can be easily cheated. So all this technical knowledge has to be there for the head of an institution or a company with a clear vision. So you can be a head, you can be a vice president, president of a CAE R&D center for a new product development center. You can be a director for a vehicle development, and or else you can start your own CAE solutions company. So you can also do some CAE solutions. You can give some solutions by yourself, starting your own entrepreneurship. So these are all the top management roles which might. So how to get into this domain? To be simple. So you have to stand out from the group. So you need to first understand the basics of mechanical engineering, which is the strength of materials and engineering mechanics, which are the major things that cover the entire background of crash. So the basic physics and all these things. So which is covered in strength of materials and engineering mechanics, where you have to be stronger. And then you need to have a background knowledge of FEM. So understand what a FEM, because it is, you throw a rubbish garbage inside, you will give you a garbage output. So you have to understand the background knowledge, how it does, because all the representation of the physical representation in the CAE has to be done in a very proper manner. So that knowledge has to come from the background knowledge of FEM. Then understand the basics of crash. Understand what physics, what happens from the Newton's laws, what happens from energy. So what are the conservations of energy laws which happens here in a crash. So understand the basics of crash. And then we talked about certain software packages earlier. So get expertise in some of the software packages. So that is how you get into this domain. So these are all the references that I've used for today's presentation.